As Americans prepare for the holiday season, we're reminded of the values in which we hold dear during these times: to be with family, to be with friends, to have good food. The holidays are supposed to signal a tradition of love and compassion and empathy and care for one another. But underneath the holidays and the good intentions, American culture is very dominated by a feeling of consumerism and the need to spend, need to purchase, to buy.
There must be something wrong with me, Linus. Christmas is coming, but I'm not happy. I don't feel the way I'm supposed to feel.
The normative tradition of Thanksgiving following Halloween and then Christmas has been reconfigured to allow for newer and newer spending holidays, such as Black Friday and Cyber Monday, all in an effort to boost sales.
I always end up feeling depressed.
Charlie Brown, you're the only person I know who can take a wonderful season like Christmas and turn it into a problem.
But you don't have to be Charlie Brown to feel the emptiness and shallowness of our holiday consumerist culture. We have all seen videos of Black Friday madness, but just in case you haven't, here are a few. Our society is dominated by these corporate manufactured market events like Black Friday, which monetize to some degree the shared cultural tradition of the holidays. No irony is wasted on the idea that the day after we celebrate with family to take appreciation of our lives and be thankful for what we have, we the next day force ourselves to shop earlier and earlier, to go into a store to handle the throngs of hungry consumers looking for more. And each year these events are cyclical, like the seasons, to keep our societies consuming, spending, and wanting more. We want the latest gadgets and smart technologies to more perfectly organize and streamline our lives. We want the latest fashions and styles that we see in magazines and television ads that convince us that our clothes are no good and out of date. And every Black Friday, Wall Street snaps a wishbone with the American people, and every year they get not only their half, but more and more of our half, as we continuously reduce our standards and our compassion for one another by resorting to these crazed frenzies of commerce and capitalism. As we enable this continued obsession with new products by contributing to the problem, we avoid facing the larger implications of this cultural addiction. With the media machine working hard to advertise products and services to better our lives, are we creating a throwaway culture of constant consumption and massive waste? The answer to this question is clear. We are definitely a society of waste. The statistics don't lie, and Americans being just 4% of the world's population consume 25% of the world's resources. In our drive to be ever more convenient, are we creating several inconvenient realities? American throwaway culture values the replacement of goods, even if they don't need replacement. The corporate chieftains of the economy see an opportunity to make massive gains by selling an endless stream of new devices, expending an ever-finite pool of resources for future generations. The world becomes a significantly smaller place when we think that every item we or anybody else has ever thrown away is still here, in some capacity, and that every item that we consume adds to our overall global footprint. The planet is quickly becoming too crowded, and as more and more civilizations move into a post-industrial society, the American throwaway culture is sought after and desired. The effects of our constant consumption on the environment are the primary cause of the current mass extinction of many endangered animals. As we plunder the earth for more resources to fuel demand, we imperil the fate of many species. Not only does our throwaway culture imperil other species, it also threatens members of our own, as homelessness continues to be a major problem for urban centers. As it stands, millions of people are on the fringe of society, unable to partake in our waste culture. While we eagerly anticipate new items and products, we constantly turn a blind eye to the misery that is suffered by those who cannot compete in this society and are left out in the cold by an uncaring government and an uncaring population. We have grown cold to the misery of others while demanding more material happiness for ourselves. While greed runs rampant, people literally starve in the streets, as the richest nation in the history of mankind feels it best to allow people to suffer the wrath of failing to play the capitalist game. Work, consume, waste, repeat. But a remedy for the waste culture exists. It turns out there's a solution to our need to always buy more and more new items, which constantly threatens our resources and adds to the global accumulation of our trash. A group of defiant capitalists flaunt the system and challenge the big box stores with a truly free market economy. Vendors work directly with customers to haggle prices and determine a true market value for items of sometimes questionable quality. Every Friday through Sunday, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., a gathering takes place in Point Loma, San Diego, not unlike similar assemblies in other towns, which may hold the secret to our obsession with always buying new. The Point Loma swap meet, also known as Kobe's swap meet, is a fascinating glimpse into the world of consumerism and culture that is more focused on the old, the forgotten, and the rejected items of our past, instead of the rapidly evolving slew of gadgets and gizmos that clog Santa's sleigh every year. In this paradise of capitalism exists on the asphalt fields of the Valley View Casino, where you can see such acts as Beyoncé and Justin Bieber, in case you were wondering. Surrounded by thousands of parked cars in every direction, the Point Loma swap meet makes good use of unoccupied space. The items on sale at the swap meet are an odd mix of seemingly worthless piles of trash and collected debris that is difficult to imagine anyone actually buying. And then there's remarkable finds that would be difficult to locate at the local mall. What's fascinating about the Point Loma swap meet that on a routine day you can expect to find vendors selling high-end artwork or hand-woven tapestries, right next to a table selling costume jewelry, right next to someone selling Spam out of the trunk of their car. No matter the product, everything has a price. Customers offer to trade, swap, barter, and persuade vendors into lowering their prices, while the vendors play games of their own to increase the perceived value of any object by explaining how they would love to go lower, but the item is one of a kind, or that they're waiting for someone to match their price. Cash is exchanged hand over hand, with both parties agreeing on a fair price. At the swap meet, it is mostly a buyer's market all of the time, as even posturing salesmen can only relent for so long before they're compelled to make the sale. At the swap meet, prices can be fairer because the consumer still has a degree of leverage, and the person selling the item directly benefits from the transaction. In many ways, the difficulties of selling at the swap meet match the same challenges any entrepreneur faces in their quest for self-employment. The success of any day is determined by the vendor's quality of goods, their ability to strike a reasonable price with their customers, and a strong charisma that will attract people to buy their goods. At the swap meet, vendors are often working out of the back of their own automobiles, with their display of goods becoming an outgrowth of their parked car. Every morning, they arrive early to find a good spot, unload their wares, and hope for a day of strong sales. Whatever doesn't make the cut that day and isn't sold or traded goes back into the vehicle for the next swap meet. Some seem to excel at this practice and seem to be making constant deals, while others just seem to be holding on, selling old VHS movies and random items just to stay afloat. In this way, the swap meet represents a more idealized version of the free market than even Wall Street can claim to be. Free from taxes, regulations, labor laws, and quality assurances, the world of the swap meet is a laissez-faire paradise. Unburdened by government intervention and allowed to sell in an open market, it's not uncommon to see child labor, which is usually just the kids of the vendors helping out with the day sales, or the occasional sale of medication that is expired, but is too good to pass up at 2-for-1 to prices. Vendors flaunt health laws, selling open bags of chips and cookies, selling aftermarket food items, and selling illegally pirated movies and video games.
That one you pull back and it goes for, that's 3 and it's 2 for 5 on the others.
Dog sale, hang on the table, dog for item.
What is it?
Hang on the table, dog for item.
In this way, the swap meet may well represent a new economic model, one in which the customer is empowered by the fierce competition of the free market. In our current model, prices for goods are determined by some wholly corrupt system of finance regulations and tariffs. The messy intersections of trade law inflate or deflate an object's value to stimulate growth sectors in separate economies. Our current market economy is a global one, and therefore is anything but determined by the consumer. Global multinationals set the prices for goods, while large banking factions write the rules of global finance to benefit themselves. At the swap meet, this system is defeated. Not forced to sell the newly contrived spectacles of consumerism, the vendors at the swap meet find value in the rejected and refused articles of society, and build a new economy out of what was and still is. In this way, the interaction between buyer and seller is a greatly respected and valued exchange. Each purchase made goes directly back into the community it supports. Instead of being hoarded and shipped overseas to foreign accounts, these sales go directly into the pockets of the families that use the swap meet to earn their way. In some desperate situations, some vendors seem to be on the doorstep of homelessness, living out of their vehicles like a traveling caravan trader, selling wares as they go to support the day's needs. In many ways, the swap meet may just be the final rung on the ladder, keeping people from falling off completely. But also contained in the swap meet is a reflection of our shared culture. The relics of a forgotten era are revived to reflect the change in times we live in. Hardly do we ask ourselves, what becomes of the fixations we once coveted and since forgotten? What became of all the cards we collected after we stopped playing the game? What happened to all the CDs and videos we used to collect before everything was made available to stream online? What happened to all the clothes we stopped wearing even though they remained in good condition, or the toys we threw away because we got older and stopped caring? The life of any object and the story it tells of a place and a time that is different from the present never ends just because it is no longer relevant. The history of society is carried in the crates and boxes of the vendors that hoard these items for their continued value. The swap meet is a photograph of the past that we see in the present, of ourselves as we were then, told to who we are now. The truth is that these objects will outlive us, and the raw material of their creation is in a permanent state of telling the story of who we are as a people. The sad tragedy of our incessant consumption of raw materials is that their value wanes as we are taught to always want more. Items that will spend millions of years sitting in a landfill or swirling in the polluted islands of debris in the ocean once meant something to someone, and now just occupy a space and time to preserve a memory. As much as the items on sale reflect us, the swap meet too is a modern slice of cultural relevance. Humans have always gathered in markets and squares to sell goods and trade services. Before capitalism was even a concept, there was the Silk Road, endless bazaars and markets, all in the service of trading not just currency, but culture and heritage. The intermingling of cultures is what makes the tapestry of America so diverse. At the swap meet, there isn't the corporate staleness and impersonality of most box stores. Instead, there's a vibrancy of life. There's people talking, eating, arguing, and interacting with each other to share stories and make a living. As our culture has moved away from locally sourced businesses, we have accepted the corporate model of what our country and society should look like. That's why everywhere you go, it pretty much all looks the same. The same logos continuously crowd out our public spaces, replacing culture for consumerism. Now is a time when we must ask ourselves why we need so much, and is it making us any happier? Have we gone through enough Christmases to know that the things we cherish most are friends and family, and not just the material objects sitting under the plastic tree? Have we endured enough Black Friday videos to comfortably state that that version of ourselves is deprecating and confused, because the items we race to retrieve will soon fade from relevancy and no longer mean so much to us? Are we willing to accept that in order to change our society to respond to climate change, we must first change ourselves, and we must begin to value everything that we have and be grateful for it, and not just throw it all away because something newer comes along? Instead of throwing it all away, what happens to it all when we hold on to it and accept less material items in replace of happiness and culture? In geologic time, humans may well just be a layer of strata buried deep in the fossil records of landfills and swirling ocean debris that will indicate our time on this planet. Not the poetry of music, nor the love that fills our life with purpose will mean anything to the future deprived of resources. Only our trash and the story it says about us will matter.